We're joined via Skype by Lawson Naidoo from the Council for the Advancement of South African Constitution. Mr. Naidoo, it's always a pleasure having you with us. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
The Constitutional Court declaring Section 19 of the Electoral Act invalid will obviously be a game changer for the political landscape, but also for South Africans at large. Can we talk about what this judgment really means for us?
Indeed. I think what the Constitutional Court declared this morning was that the provisions of the Electoral Act that impact and infringe upon the political right in Section 19 of the Constitution, which is the right to stand for public office by individual citizens, was unconstitutional, and therefore Parliament has been given 24 months in order to remedy that defect in the Electoral Act. What this means is that Parliament will have to find a mechanism to facilitate the participation by individual candidates in national and provincial elections. Up until now, we've operated on the basis of a closed list proportional representation system where only political parties were able to put forward candidates for election to these levels of legislatures.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm wrong, Mr. Naidoo, but what does this mean then for someone with, let's say, political ambitions, but also deep pockets who could fund, his or her own campaign easily? Does this then mean this race could be based on, who has more money to spend, who has more money to put aside for some sort of a political campaign? I mean, we look at what happened in the USA, where President Donald Trump decided that, he wants to get into the political landscape after being a businessman and so forth. Is that what this would then essentially mean for us, that anybody with deep pockets could say, well, I've got enough money to fund my own political career?
Well, obviously, the impact of money in politics is something that has concerned South Africans for a long time. And we've only very recently been able to make progress in this regard, with Parliament passing the Political Party Funding Act recently, and just last week the President signing into law the amendment to the Promotion of Access to Information Act that gives access to funding of political parties and independent candidates at a local government level. So obviously money plays a big part in politics. It's expensive to run election campaigns, as we know, and therefore independent candidates that are going to be standing will have to have the resources to be able to fund those political campaigns. Yeah. And we already know from our experience, just in last year's national election, I think we had 48 political parties contesting the national or election to the National Assembly. Many of them failed to get over the threshold of around 44,000 votes to be able to claim a seat in the National Assembly. So whilst this does open the door for independent candidates stand for election, there's a lot of work ahead for those potential candidates in order to be able to win sufficient support to claim a seat in the National Assembly.
What I found rather interesting, and I wonder if you saw that previous clip we played before chatting to you, we saw some of the political parties actually welcoming this, and I would have expected actually the opposite. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's rather interesting that political parties should welcome this, because it potentially weakens the grip that political parties have on politics in this country and on legislative bodies in particular. I think it would be difficult for them to disagree with this judgment, so they might be welcoming it through gritted teeth, as it were. Because it does have an impact on the monopoly that political parties have had on our politics so far.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Naidoo, thank you so very much for giving us your time. We do continue our conversation on this ruling. Thank you, sir.